Okay, with people online, many people online waiting, let's start. It's my pleasure to introduce Tom Richards. He is our Vice President for Finance for the system. He's the one that holds our purse for the pension plans that we all enjoy. And he's going to talk to us like last year, last June. He gave us a presentation too, which is still on the website. This one will be on the website after we're done, about the state of our pension plans, the state of investment of the system. And after Tom is done, we'll probably then open it up for a full question and answer.
Thank you for having me again. I always enjoy coming here and getting an opportunity to go out to lunch with such fantastic people. So we're giving an update. And let's see, so we'll just start off again, just as kind of a reminder. The investment office is managing the defined benefit plan and the endowments for the universities, and then the working capital for all four of the universities in the health system. And so we're right about still around $11 billion. It gives us a nice amount of scale in terms of having access to good managers and being able to do things efficiently with reasonable fees. So that's a good thing. We always talk about the infamous pension equation. Just as a reminder for people in terms of what makes a defined benefit plan work. We all know, in particular this group, that red part, the benefit payments. The benefit payments are really the most known thing about a defined benefit plan, because we have information on all of our lives that are in the plan, and the actuaries do their calculations, and we can project what those benefit costs are with pretty good precision. And just as an aside, I know this has been mentioned at more on the system sessions that we've had, but as sort of a check on the actuaries, we've engaged over the last couple of years this firm that's based over in the UK, and all they do is pension work, and they do kind of individual projections on an individual life basis for defined benefit plans. And it's another way to get at what that benefit payment liability would be. So we and many other plans would have submitted information to this firm, totally anonymous, like without any identifying information, names, nothing like that. But basically, you know, how long did they work for the university, their date of birth, what date did they retire, and what type of job did they have, and then where did they live? And they're able to sort of recreate from the bottom up a pension liability based on an individual life basis. And then we compared it to what the actuaries do from more of a top-down basis, just to get a sort of a sanity check. As an aside, another reason that we did that is the university is a very, the different kind of an animal from a pension plan perspective, because we have employees that are so different from one another. We have obviously the faculty in their roles, and then the staff, and then among the staff, we have people doing very much white collar positions or blue collar positions, landscaping, so physical labor, white collar labor. So we have people doing different functions, and all of those things affect life expectancies, and they're all in the same plan. So in any event, all of that is to say is that we take a look at all that data in the bottom up, checked in very well with the top down. Another thing I would mention, and this kind of gets to our earlier discussion on longevity, and working through all of this with the actuaries and all of these data people, faculty. So if you look at careers and professions across the US, faculty in higher ed have the longest life expectancy. Good. It may not be good for the pension, but that's baked into the calculation. But it kind of gets back to a lunchtime conversation we were having about longevity and all the important things to stay engaged and to stay healthy. And it would be no surprise to me that faculty would be focused on those kinds of things and incorporate some of those things into their retirement lifestyle. but it works in terms of longevity. So in any case, benefit payment piece, and then obviously the contributions going in from the university and then the investment income. The investment income, we make assumptions on what we think the market will give us, but at the end of the day, we really can't control that. And so the swing part is the green, the left-hand side, the contributions, that is what the university needs to put into the plan. That's what the university has always put into the plan and will continue to put into the plan. We've shown this, I know I showed this last year also. So when we map out the expected life of the pension plan, going out through the year 2110. So that's when our actuaries anticipate that the last person in the plan currently will pass on. So the plan will be around for a long time. And the projections are, based on the current data, is that through that time frame, the plan will pay out another $19 billion in benefits. And that's what we prepare for. That's what the modeling is for.
In today's dollars.
In today's dollars, yeah. And I looked, we did a different exercise for the board, and I'd been in my role for, I don't know, roughly 11 years at the time. And we looked backward since I started in my role. And just in that time, a little over 10 years, we paid out $2.5 billion of pension payments to retirees. So it's a significant contributor, obviously, and that's also up beyond good for our retirees, good for the economy, good for the state. And we have another 19 billion to go. We showed this last year also, I'm pretty sure. This is just a visual representation of the projected benefit payments in the defined benefit plan. And what it's really showing is where the peak will come. So we know that the plan was closed to new employees starting in 2019. And then earlier on in 2012, we went to the hybrid plan. I'm going to slide on that. So we've been slowing access into the plan, but there still are a lot of people in the plan. And just from and we look at this partially also in terms of the size of investments that we manage. So we know that the invested assets of the plan will also continue to grow for at least another 10, 15 years. So we'll reach a peak. I don't know what that is. If I drop it down, somewhere around 2042 is when we'll reach the peak, and then those benefit payments will start to decline. But all of that's taken into account in the modeling. One of the other things that I mentioned, I don't have this in the slide, but in the course of doing some other work, which I'll talk about on this this buyout offer for terminated participants, we decided at the same time to have a firm, Millman, who's another actuarial firm. We decided to have Millman do an audit of the other firm and the data that the other actuarial firm uses to project the benefit liability. So we had one auditing firm do an audit of the work of the other one, just as a sanity check, just to dig into the data to make sure we've got the best information. And there were some issues that came up from a data perspective that we've gotten cleaned up. Really no material effect on the plan, but it was a good exercise to go through. And again, from a retiree perspective, just know that now going forward, not only do we have the independent actuary doing the calculations, but now we've started probably every 3 to 5 years going forward to have a separate independent audit done of the regular work process. So this kind of goes along this slide with what I was talking about, the transition that's taking place. This has no impact on retirees, but it's just more of an awareness of how the retirement plans are shifting from the defined benefit plan that you all are likely in, I'm in, my wife is in, to the sort of the blank part of the bar, or the white part of the bars on the top, which is the defined contribution plan that all new employees from 2019 forward are going into. So you can see a fairly rapid transition in terms of the percentage of salaries that will be in that new DC plan going forward. And then that becomes another pool of assets that we also help manage with Fidelity for that platform. I mentioned again, we talked about this is nothing new, but the university's defined contribution plan, I mean, to be just totally transparent, there was never any stated objective to quote, cut costs. It was more about the volatility of the operating budget to have more certainty in the cost. So just as a reminder, for new employees coming in to work for the university, when they come in from their very first paycheck, we're withholding 8% of their salary to go into the DC plan, and we're immediately matching 8%. So an employee comes in today and they start, and from their first paycheck, they've got 16% savings rate, half of their own and half of the university. And so we're setting up employees pretty well to be prepared for retirement, just something that they'll control going forward instead of the university. I've also talked to other peers, not just universities, but just other businesses about the power of that auto default. If you start taking that out of someone's first paycheck, I swear, it sounds funny. I would bet that a large number of employees that are in that plan, they may not even know that they have a retirement savings plan. We have data that shows that a larger percentage than you maybe like to see, they've never logged on to Fidelity. They've never looked at their account. And, in a sense, we're okay with that because we know that they're set up to be saving at a very appropriate rate for retirement. And hopefully some of them will have a nice surprise when they go to leave the university. They'll have a balance in their account that they can take with them. So again, this is a long sort of timeline that we kind of go over from the university standpoint in terms of how we've managed the retirement plan. You all know this. Coming out of the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, we added the employee contribution, which has not changed since that time, and there's no intent to change that going forward. Along with that, we've established a benefit stabilization reserve, which is in the neighborhood right now of 100 to 110 million from memory. We're probably going to need to use that in the next couple of years because of the returns that we've had in the markets, which we can talk about, but that's what it's there for. 2012, we transitioned to the 50-50 hybrid plan where people got half of a defined benefit and half DC. 2019, 100% defined contribution, et cetera. In 2022, this was something that went to the board last year. It was a very robust financial management policy that the board approved in the reflected rules, which lays out very clearly how the financial aspects of the defined benefit plan will be managed going forward, which is a big deal, much more so than most people realized at the time. Particularly important because the plan is closed to new participants, which has its own issues. Finally, 2023, some of you already heard about this, but in case you haven't and you do hear about it, we are in process of offering a voluntary buyout for terminated vested members. So people that were in the defined benefit plan, so they had to have been at the university at least 5 years to vest in the plan. And so these would be people that vested, they were here for 5 years and then they left. So they're no longer employees, they're not active, they're not in retirement, they're just out there. There's about this is from my memory, don't hold me exactly, but around 3,000 participants in the plan that are terminated vesteds. Their benefit liability is somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million. So that we're carrying in the plan. It's their money, but they're in the plan. We're trying to, we put together an offer that will slightly incent them to take their money and pull it out of the plan and roll it over into their own 401k, 403b, et cetera. Why would we want to do that? Well, at the margin where we can, we'd like to reduce the amount of liability in the plan. These are not employees. They're not our retirees. They're just people that have money in there. There's 3,000 of them. We have to administer those accounts in perpetuity. We have to regularly contact them. It's an administrative burden as well. And I just say that the way the math worked out from an actuarial standpoint, we were able to offer this group of people an incentive to leave so that they would get a little bit more to leave the plan than they ordinarily would. But at the same time, it will also allow the plan to book a slight gain on them going out. And that's a more complicated discussion, but it has to do with the actuarial calculations. So the main point is it's a win-win option. It's a win for the people that want to pull their money out of the plan because they'll get a little bit more, but the plan will also be able to book a little bit of a gain. So that's underway. That's been approved by the board. Communications will be going out to that class of terminated people later in the summer, and it's kind of a non-event from a retiree standpoint, but we want to make sure people understand what's going on and that it doesn't affect retirees at all. This is just kind of data. I mean, some of you are more into this than others. The return assumption, the discount rate, it's a pretty important thing in sort of whether the liability is reflected in a realistic way, whether the contributions are going in at the appropriate level. Our return assumption is at 7%. That's pretty much in the middle of the pack for public pension plans. And the financial management policy that the board approved last year will begin, as the funding allows, will begin to systematically lower that rate, which is important if you're a retiree because it's a way to reduce the risk of the plan. So that's set up into board policy. Why is that? No one's asked, but I'll mention the comment anyway. Why was it important to get board policy into the collected rules on something like this? The reason is, one, this thing is around a long time, but two, we've in essence put the roadmap into the collected rules, and it's already been approved, and it's going to be somewhat on autopilot in terms of reducing this discount rate and de-risking the plan. So another way, it's not a discussion that we have to have now with the board ongoing about, do we want to do this? Do we want to lower the discount rate? It's going to raise the contribution requirement. It's already set into board policy in the collected rules. And honestly, it's the best thing that we could have possibly done for the financial health of this plan going forward. So again, just from a reassuring standpoint, it's being managed as well as any other public pension plan in the country. So this is a snapshot. This is just our university's fiscal year. So the first 9 months through March 31st, maybe just to look at the bottom, the total portfolio, we're up 2.6%. So obviously from that prior slide, the return assumption is 7%. So this will be another year where we are not going to hit that 7% number. Last year was also, we were down, I'm trying to either 1.7 or 1.9% last year. And who knows what's going to happen between now and the end of June. I have no idea. It changes every day, I think. And Paul's, I think, before Congress today speaking about rates. This is okay. These are things in terms of the returns. These are things that are planned for. We had, let's see, this is 23, 22. So I think it was FY21. We were up 28 or 29%. So you have good years, you have bad years, and they work out over time. Why have returns been challenged? It all has to do, and this is going back last year as well. It's this change in the cash rate, which is basically what the Fed's been doing, raising that cash rate. When that cash rate goes up, it affects the discounting of all cash flows of all investments. So when that cash rate goes up, generally by and large, all asset classes are going to be under pressure. And that's what's happened. That's what we would have expected to have happened. And that's kind of what's going on. Yeah.
Can you explain alpha and beta portfolio? What is that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we are running an alpha program, and I guess the simplest way to say is it's run with a very safe form of leverage. So the total beta portfolio is at 100%. The alpha portfolio is a separate portfolio of very carefully selected hedge funds. And that equates to about 20% of the capital. So we're running at about 120% of capital. And I could get into that, and I'm happy to stay after and talk through that, how we do that and why we do that. But it's a way to generate additional return for the retirement plan and the endowment pool. And this year, you know, so far, that alpha portfolio is down 1.5%. So that has an impact of 40 basis points on return. So the main portfolio is up 3, the net is 2.6. So the alpha portfolio this year is a drag of 40 basis points. Last year, the alpha portfolio made more money than the entire beta portfolio. So it's partly, there's a lot of reasons to do it. Diversification of returns is the main thing. So on a 3-year, again, kind of like even things out and look at things on a longer term horizon. So this is the 3-year period, annualized returns as of the end of March 31st, 23. So the annualized 3-year return is 11.6%. The benchmark, so the board's benchmark for that time period was 9.7%. So we and our managers that we employ, we beat the benchmark by 1.9% over that 3-year period. If you translate that 1.9% of the total assets in the plan, that works out to another $218 million in investment income. Now, if we compared ourselves to a peer pension plan, and again, we just do that to give people a sense of how our asset allocation might be compared to others. But a peer public pension plan, the median of a fairly large universe over that same time period was up by about 10.6%. So we beat the peer median by about 1%, and that translates into about $125 million. This is not how we make investment decisions. Certainly, we're not trying to beat. We certainly are always trying to beat the policy benchmark, though, because that more reflects on how we're investing the money given the board's investment policy. And that's really the end of anything that I've prepared. I'm happy to answer any questions about the plan or about markets or about returns or anything where I can be helpful.
Do we have any questions from people online? Yes, Mark.
I'm a retiree on the defined benefit plan. My question concerns the buyout of individuals who've been on the plan but have moved to perhaps another institution or something else. And you indicated there is an incentive that's being provided to encourage them to leave for in return for whatever benefits that university derives. My question concerns where the extra money is coming from. Is the university taking it out of the general budget, or will it come out of the retirement fund that currently exists? Which, is us buying out the other people. Makes me feel uncertain.
So there is no external money involved. This is all within the plan. It's kind of quirky and it gets into the actuarial math, but what I would say is that for people that are terminated from the plan but vested, so the population that we're talking about, the amount they're entitled to get by the plan document is based on actuarial tables, I believe, from either 1983 or 1987. So anyone can take anyone that's either retired or terminated can do a buyout from the plan. You're allowed to do that. We've never encouraged it before, but we wanted to try to offer an incentive to try to encourage people to actually do it. If you're just terminated and you're not yet on retiree status, your benefit calculation, again, is going to be driven by actuarial tables from the 1980s. Now, why is that? That's what's in the plan document. I couldn't tell you why, but that's what the plan document says, and we actually can't change that. So in the 1980s, life expectancy was not what it is today. So the plan liability today is based on today, based on 2023, not the 1980s. So the amount that these people were entitled to get paid out is based on a time when the life expectancy wasn't as great, meaning that that calculation results in a lower amount of money than what we've actually accrued for, assuming that they would live out their life and become a retiree at some point. So the liability that we have set aside is a little bit higher than what they would be entitled to get paid out because of the difference in the actuarial tables. It's a strange thing. We stumbled across it, but what it allows us to do is to kind of split the difference. So given the arbitrage between those two sets of calculations, which are again embedded in the plan document, we can give these people a little bit more money than they would have been entitled to get under those 83 tables. But that payout is still less than what we've set aside to cover their benefit. So it's a case where it's a win-win, where both that class gets a little bit more, but the plan will actually be able to book a gain. So the plan will, on a funded status, will come out slightly ahead. So it's truly a win-win.
But the amount that you're talking about relative to the size of the plan is 0.1% or 0.01% or something like that.
That's small. I mean, the total liability of this group is around $300 million. That's relative to total plan liability of around $5 billion. And we expect maybe 30 to 40% of the people in this class to take the offer. So this is a really, at the margin, it's a small thing. It's not going to have a big impact on the plan at all. It'll be a slight gain. Probably the bigger benefit for us going forward is that we hope to clear out, maybe 1,000 or so members that we don't have to track in perpetuity going forward. So it's probably as much administrative benefit as anything.
Any other questions for Tom?
No raise this year?
We have a question here.
I saw one chart had something about operating budget on one side and does UMKC impact the plan at all?
No, let me put that back. I kind of glossed over that. I'm glad you brought that up. This was just,
To give an idea.
yeah, so all this is saying is like the UMKC operating budget, somewhere around 400 million a year. We're going to be making benefit payments out of this plan, which are going to be about equal to the budget for the entire campus. It's just to kind of give a sense to people the magnitude of the plan, and then also just to talk about in the volatility, really what happened, and it surfaced during the financial crisis, is this almost became the tail that was wagging the dog of the university, because the plan had gotten so big relative to the university itself that the volatility of this plan got so great that it was having pretty big impacts on the operating budget of the university. And many of you will remember it because coming out of the financial crisis, we had to keep increasing the benefit rate to cover the contributions going in. And I remember very well, I mean, the state budget, the appropriations were struggling coming out, and we had to pay for this and other things. In many areas with only people in their budgets, they were faced with having to eliminate people because the benefit rate was going up. And so, that's what happened. But it also is sort of this impetus to say that we don't want to go through this again. We want to offer employees a very fair, competitive, good savings for retirement, but the university can't afford to insure people against market risk. That's kind of, the end result of that.
So the defined contribution plan basically put the risk at the individual and the market.
It is, yeah, absolutely. There's no hiding from that. But the flip side of that is, again, we all know people are tending not to spend a career at an institution anymore. And so with the prior plan, if you left before 5 years, you basically got nothing. there's a lot of turnover in the university, not so much among the faculty roles, but among the staff roles. It's higher than you would think. And so from that standpoint, the defined contribution plan is better for people that are changing jobs because they're earning and accruing a benefit. When they leave, they can take it with them. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
there any future, see any chances of any increase in our pension pay in the near future?
Not likely.
I was afraid of that answer.
And I say that because like, given where the returns have been in the market, the funded status of the plan now is probably down in the upper 70s, 70% or so. And so we need to get that back up to 100%. So we can't, and that's why the policy that the board approved was very explicit.
Yeah.
When we're behind on being fully funded, we can't dig the hole deeper and give out additional benefits. So if we get to the point, or I should say, when we get to the point where the plan is back fully funded at 100% and we de-risk the plan, then it's I guess it's possible, but I'd have to say it's not likely.
Okay.
Or put another way, it's probably at least a decade away from the plan being in that position. So it's certainly nothing that I would plan on.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, on the opposite, chances of decrease.
No,
Okay, there's the question.
no, I mean, that's not possible.
That's what I meant.
And I tell people, I said at the beginning, I mean, I'm in this plan. My wife is a faculty member at MU. She's been at MU since '99. She's in this plan. I have lots of friends, in this room and other places that are in the plan. The plan's important to me. But the plan is also in very good shape. And so I think, people should take comfort in that. And the board remains committed to keeping this in good shape and doing everything best practices. Again, I mentioned we've done for the first time, and I don't know how long, we've done an independent audit of the actuary. Everything that we could be doing. We started out talking about recalculating the benefit liability in a different way. We've exhausted, we think, at least right now, all the possibilities to make sure that everything we're doing is best practices, that we've scrubbed the data over, it's been audited, it's been reviewed, the assumptions have been reviewed. The policy at the board level is in place. So we're set up as well as any public pension plan in the country in terms of prudent management. And if, at the end of the day, if the university has to put more money in terms of contributions, that's exactly what the university will do. That is the obligation of the university. And we're very well aware of that. And that's why we've done all these things to manage the plan.
With that promissory note.
One more question.
Oh, sorry.
Tom, back in December and January, there were some articles in the Columbia paper that raised some concerns. Do you want to have a chance to say anything about that, or would you like to decline?
No, I'm happy to answer questions about that. The frustrating thing, I'll just say for me, was that, I've been very involved with this since I joined in 2011, right after the financial crisis. And I'm aware of all of the very proactive things that we've done. The policy that the board approved last year, I wrote most of that policy and with Eric Vogelweid in the controller's office. And we went out and we looked at best practices of the best run public pension plans. And so it was frustrating from the standpoint of, we knew the reality was that this institution has been doing everything possible to have a very well-managed plan. And so it was frustrating when someone was just kind of throwing stuff out that was somewhat disconnected from reality. And, now can I poke holes at pension plans? Sure. But in terms of being in the space of public pension plans, we are as well run as any other plan in the country. And I would say that, I'd tell you, I'd look you in the eye and tell you that. Is there risk to the university in funding? Yeah, but that is the university's risk, and that is the university's obligation. And, you know, again, if you look at the university's audited financial statements, you will see a liability line item on there for the unfunded part of the plan. It is an obligation of the university, period. And that does not go away. Yeah.
I'm going. That you have been doing over the years, cite some examples of some institutions that really have messed up this thing. Good to know that.
That it messed up?
Yeah. And I'm not sure, you know, I speak.
So, well, one is we are. University of Missouri system and the University of California are the only two significant public universities I'm aware of where the university has its own defined benefit plan. In most of higher ed, the faculty have really always been in a defined contribution plan, mostly with TIA. So the faculty have typically not had defined benefit plans in higher ed. And the staff of universities are typically in the state's public pension plan, like in our case, it would be Mosher's. So outside of the University of Missouri system, all the other public higher ed faculty and staff are in Mosher's. And Mosher's is a lot more expensive to run than our plan. I just say that. But where do things go wrong? I mean, look at Illinois. Illinois is the poster child. Kentucky, New Jersey. The thing is with these plans that are failing, it's pretty simple. The people in charge of the budget, whether it's the city or the state legislature, they just chose over and over again when their budgets were tight, they just didn't put contributions into the plan. So it's really not that complicated in terms of why are the Illinois plans so poorly funded and likely to fail? It's because the state government or the city of Chicago chose during financial difficulties just not to fund the plan. I mean, you just can't do that. So the university has always, every year since the plan was initiated in, I think, the late 50s, every year there's an independent actuarial analysis of the plan. And the actuary tells the university, you need to put this much money into the plan. And every single year, even through times like the financial crisis, the university has put that money into the plan. And it's really not that complicated, but it's amazing how poorly run some public pension plans have been because the politicians chose not to fund them. And they're going to be in even deeper trouble because they all have very rich COLA provisions, cost of living provisions that again are just going to raise their costs and raise their liabilities, and they're going to make their unfunded status even worse. So I don't know how within the next 5 years or so we don't start to see public pension plans failing. And just to be clear, not us. We're well run, and we've always funded the plan at levels that we're supposed to do.
Okay,
All right.
another positive note. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And,
for having me again.
Welcome. We're glad that you were able this year again to join us and tell us the status of our pensions.
All right.